It's Bullseye. I'm Jesse Thorn. My first guest this week is Amy Sedaris. She's honestly, and I am making an editorial judgment here, one of the funniest human beings in the world. You probably saw her when she starred on Comedy Central's strange show, Strangers with Candy. She played a 46-year-old high school freshman. Among other things, it helped kick off the career of Stephen Colbert. She's been a regular on The Late Show with him and with Letterman before him. She's had recurring roles on a bunch of other stuff, too. She was on Sex and the City. Lately, you've seen her as Mimi Kanasis on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. You've heard her as Princess Carolyn in BoJack Horseman. Sedaris is also an expert when it comes to stuff you might learn in home ec class. Decorating pine cones, cooking casseroles, that kind of thing. She's a big home entertainer, too. So for the longest time, she's had this idea. Make a show starring her where she bakes, barbecues, and, makes sailboats out of baked potatoes. Except instead of the regular version of that show, it's the Amy Sedaris version of that show. So the potatoes are covered in glue. The barbecue is on the 11th hole at a golf course. And the thing that she's baking is a giant heap of raw ground beef because the oven on set doesn't actually work. This year, the show became a reality, finally. It's called At Home with Amy Sedaris. It's on True TV. It's just as funny as it sounds. Amy plays a kind of amped-up version of herself, and she's visited by folks like Paul Giamatti, Stephen Colbert. This show's it's a delight. Here's a little bit from the second episode. She's talking about entertaining for one.
Anybody who knows me knows I never wear fitted jeans, I was a Girl Scout for way too long, and I'm involved heavily in the House Rabbit Society. But they also know I love to entertain. And what does entertaining mean? I believe it's the giving of myself to you, from me, for us. And when it comes to hospitality, I've settled on a certain way of doing things. It might not be the most proper way, or the most traditional, or even the most legal, but it works for me. And now, it can work for you. Now, if there's one thing I've learned, you can't entertain without guests. And when it comes to guests, I'm my favorite. I like the sound of my voice, I dress appropriately, and I always show up with something in my hand. That's why tonight, I'm cooking for one. And I'm not alone at being alone, because so many of you people out there dine solo. Or, as the French say, al fresco.
Amy Sedaris, welcome back to the show. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
I was laughing not only because the lines were funny, but also because I was remembering that I believe in that scene you are manhandling a meatloaf that is entirely uncooked.
Yes.
Just plunging your fingers into the ground meat.
We have to do that to make meatloaf.
That's true. Although for some reason on the program it goes into the oven uncooked and comes out of the oven uncooked.
Yeah, we didn't have a working oven on set.
Why did you do this show now? I feel like you probably could have pitched this show 10 years ago as well as you could have now. So what was different?
I did pitch I've been trying to actively get this show up since early 2000, and I always backed away from it. I'd get really close to it, and then I'd go, I just kept putting it off and putting it off. But, with a show like this, it's been stewing really since I've been 10 or 11. And then I did the cookbooks. It's just, like having that project that you can always think about in your head. And I think it's like making a really good soup or a really good stew, and it just takes a long time if you really want it to be good. And I just came, I think my sister passed away, and I don't know, that's pretty much the timing of it. And I just decided, it was time for me to do it. And I actively just put one foot in front of the other and just said, I'm going to do it now. Now's the time to do it. I've already done the books. They speak for itself. And I just thought, let's just do it right now.
Why do you think you backed away before?
Because then I would, I just wasn't done thinking about it. I know it sounds like a pothead mentality right there, but it wasn't. I just wanted to keep thinking about it. And so many of my friends heard me talk about it since 2001. I could see their eyes glaze over, like, really? You're still talking about this show? When are you going to do it, Amy? So it was kind of embarrassing, too, that I always talked about it but never did anything about it. But now I'm going to miss it in my head. Now I'm going to have to come up with something new.
Do you like to watch that kind of show? I mean, do you like to watch a Martha Stewart or I don't know. For some reason, the example that comes into my head is The Frugal Gourmet.
Yeah, he's a big inspiration, and I like shows like that. I grew up with those shows. Everything that, I've been saying, from Red Skeleton to Lawrence Welk and to, Two Fat Ladies and Frugal Gourmet and Galloping Gourmet and Julia Childs. And, those were all big inspirations. PTL with Tammy Faye Baker. She had a cooking segment on her show. And we had 2 local hospitality shows growing up, At Home with Peggy Mann and The Betty Elliott Show. And that's where the seed was planted when I was 10 or 11, and my mom would watch it, and I would be like, oh, I'm going to do that show when I grow up.
What are the things that you wanted to put on set to make your show the visual feast that you were looking for?
Well, I wanted a lot of artists. I went to a lot of artists, and they contributed artwork, and a lot of my family members did a lot of the artwork you see hanging up, and the Green Vase, who makes paper flowers, and my sister Gretchen, who made paper flowers, and Jean Royer was this a guy who made furniture. I don't know what year it was, but I have a book of his furniture, and Jason Singleton, who did the sets, and made replicas of some of his furniture, and John Darien contributed furniture. So it's like everybody I love, just like helped me bring that set to what it was. Adam Selman, a good friend of mine, made all the curtains, and he helped me with the color schemes. So I was always, every detail. There wasn't anything on set that, wasn't like considered. It like had to have a special home, and that's how my apartment is. It's loosely based on my apartment.
It seems like in your apartment, you take a lot of pride in the idea that every single thing that's in there is a story, is something that has actual meaning to you.
Yes. Like Maud Lewis is this painter from she's from Canada, and I get this. The only magazine I get in the mail is called World of Interiors, and that's where I read about Maud Lewis. And so we do a little. She had flowers all over her house and tulips on her windows, and her hands looked like ginger. Her hands were like deformed, and so we did that in the craft room. And I love the craft room so much on the set, and I just look at that wall and I think of Maud Lewis, and I just. I love there's a little bit of everything I love on that set. So I could just look around and just think about stuff.
Do you have in and out rules? I mean, I know that I'm at the flea market every weekend, and I sort of had to start a vintage store so that I could buy things.
Uh-huh.
Because otherwise I would just be putting things on top of other things, and you become a sad hoarder really fast.
I know.
So like you have to have a way. There has to be an indoor and an outdoor. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I still go to the flea market and look for things, but I don't go as much as I used to, just because I don't want anything else. But if I buy like a pair of shoes and I say I have to get rid of a pair of shoes, like I do keep that happening. Or I still have that 25-cent sale in my apartment where I have people over and I sell stuff I'm getting rid of for a quarter, because that's what it costs to do my laundry. I collect, I have to have a quarter. So I sell stuff for 25 cents.
I remember, I feel like the last time you were on the show, maybe you had like a permanent sale installation in your home, like it was like a table or something.
Yeah, I still do that. So.
Okay, well that's good.
It's a good way to get rid of things. Yeah.
Does it work?
Yes. I usually cater to the group of people I have over, so I know they're going to go for something. You know what I mean? So I do cater it.
I think one of the leitmotifs of your life and career is that as you have become more and more successful as an actress and comedian, you have maintained your passion for money-making side hustles.
I know. When am I going to grow out of that? I always say that when I'm, up at 4 o'clock in the morning, making 500 lighters. I'm like, when am I going to stop doing this?
What is the satisfaction of it for you?
I like selling stuff. I like the transaction. I like having a table between me and an audience and having people come and buy stuff from me. And that comes from Junior Achievements and Girl Scouts. It comes from me collecting Coke bottles and going door to door, from Kool-Aid stands. And it's just, I like the idea of having allowance money. And I like the idea of it being under the table and I made something and someone bought it. It's that simple. It's just in my blood.
Were there projects that you really wanted to get onto this show because you love them as projects rather than because they were great setups for comedy?
Every craft on the show I wanted to get on. My favorite craft is it's the marshmallow stars that I make, where you roll toothpicks and glitter and you insert them into a marshmallow and then you hang it on fishing wire. And I just can stare at that forever. Like, there isn't anything on the show. I just loved everything I made on the show, and I was passionate about it. The only thing I make on the show that I've never made before is paella. But then I didn't really make it. The food stylist made it, but I didn't like the idea of saying I made something that I never even tried before. But it looked really pretty, so I was okay with it.
Tell me a little bit about what's your favorite thing that you make on the show to cook actually yourself at home?
Well, I make this birthday cake with Nick Kroll that I make. It's an angel food cake, and you fill it with ice cream and you cover it with whipped cream. And that's a really good ice cream cake to make, especially for kids too, because they can help make it. And then I also make a baked Alaska. That was my favorite cake growing up. It's another ice cream cake. And spanakopita.
Now, you mentioned spanakopita. I feel like spanakopita is a true passion of yours.
Yeah, I make that all the time. I really can make it with my eyes closed, probably. Everyone in my family makes spanakopita, and it's easy to impress people with phyllo because they're so intimidated by it. They don't know what to do with it. It's flaky, but we all have it down in my family, so it's easy, and it's not, it's just a good crowd pleaser.
Let's hear another clip from At Home with Amy Sedaris. My guest is Amy Sedaris. She does all kinds of home activities on the show, everything you might do in home ec class. And in this scene, she's talking about seafood and fish, and there is just a dizzying and frankly slightly grotesque array of raw fish before her on her kitchen counter.
First up, the Arctic char. There you go. Now, this is a less attractive cousin to the salmon. Most people prefer salmon, but will settle for char, especially if it's the end of a night of heavy drinking and all the salmon has been ordered by the investment bankers. The red snapper. Now, you know it's the red snapper because it's red, as you can see here. A workman-like fish known for its firm texture and abundance of mercury. Perfect if slowly poisoning a loved one is on the menu. Next up is the porgy. Now, this is perhaps the dumbest fish in the sea, easily fooled by the most simple of lures. So simple to catch, you can practically pull up to the pier in an unmarked van, slide open the door, and it'll jump right in. A real dum-dum.
I feel like the monkfish is a visual gag that just depends on the fact that a monkfish is just really creepy looking.
I know. It was gigantic. It was like, and they were sitting out there for a while. The set did not smell pretty that day.
One of the things that I admire about your commitment to crafting, frankly, is that I always felt like, I'm not any good at that kind of stuff. I could never do it. And I could never get enjoyment out of it because I'm no good at it. And very few of your crafts are technically impressive.
I know, but I'm doing the best job I can.
Yeah, I'm not. I want to be clear how sincere I am in my admiration for you doing this. It's like, but I think like when you see somebody when you see Martha Stewart doing something, part of what you're admiring is just like, oh my gosh, I could never do something like that. What a remarkable, incredible achievement. And Amy, you're mostly like making pot holders and enjoying it.
Yes.
And they are nice pot holders. It's not that they're not perfectly lovely pot holders. They're just something that I could imagine a normal human being doing, Right.
You can achieve this. Right.
But like you must really, I imagine that you really get that kind of satisfaction out of a project that you can just kind of do and it'll come out kind of fun.
Well, like going back to what you said earlier, like when I watch shows like Barefoot Contessa or Martha, usually they come out with some gadget or some big appliance, and I'm looking at it like, really? Where in my apartment can I put that lemon juicer? Like, and you're plugging it in, and it's taking up all your whole counter space, and I'm like, that makes me feel left out because I don't have any gadgets. I have a French bean Frencher. That's my gadget, and you do feel left out, or you're like, oh, I can't do that. Wow, that's amazing. Or you have to go to these funky, specialty shops to get something. And I'm just like, no. I mean, I grew up in a household where you're like, okay, go cut off the vacuum hose and we can use that for something. Or go scrape the shavings off Dad's expensive speakers and we can use that to make a beard for something. I mean, you're just in your house and you're finding appliances. And that's what I like. Or I'm drawn to naive crafts or like folk art because it's, it's necessity and it's practical and you're doing with what you have. You can make a braided rug using pantyhose or tights. I mean, that's the family I grew up in, and it just makes it a lot more fun. And then you're like, wow, I never thought to use that pine cone for, to put glitter on that pine cone or whatever it is. It's just makes it more creative and you feel more like, a mad scientist.
I wouldn't say I was surprised because, it is sort of part of the premise of the show, but I was really surprised a little bit to see you looking so much like you on the show. And you do characters. There are sort of sketch segments where you are playing someone other than Amy Sedaris. But
Yes.
in the bulk of the show, you look like Amy Sedaris. And I realized how little comedy I had seen you do without at least one weird prosthetic.
I know. It was hard for me. I didn't even have fake teeth made for myself. Well, I worried about that. I was like, oh, gosh, how am I going to play myself? But then once I started playing other characters, I was like, oh, I get it now. I'm going to be the boring one. I'm going to be the one that all those characters would make fun of. So then it gave me, that's the hook that I went with. But I did worry about that, and it was a challenge for me to play myself and to look like myself. But I was like, well, I also get to play other characters, so it was okay. Because I have more fun playing characters, and I like playing ugly characters. One of my favorite episodes is Entertaining for Peanuts, where it's cooking on a budget, and I say that I do my own hair and makeup, and I look really good, really scary. I look horrible, and it opens up that way, and I could just look at myself forever. And then I get to play a hobo, and this Southern woman, Patty Hogg, and this other character I play with my nose taped up. So I just like that episode because I look so different in every scene. And then I also like the holiday episode because I lose a tooth and I get to have a blacked out mouth.
Do you prefer to look at yourself on camera? I mean, when you're making your own show, you have to look at yourself on camera to some extent. Do you prefer to look at yourself with a blacked out tooth and a crazy wig than
Yes.
to look at yourself in a pretty dress looking
Yes.
nice?
Absolutely. I can't. I mean, I can look at myself and be like, oh, hair did great job, makeup did a great job, the wardrobe's perfect, oh, those shoes. I just look at everything and look at the set and look around. But it's harder. But when I'm in character for something or I do have a prosthetic or something, then it's just like, wow, because I can tell I'm having a lot more fun.
I want to play this clip of you on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which is one of my favorite shows, and you're a regular. You make regular guest appearances on the show.
Yes.
Your character's name is Mimi Kanasis. She's best friends with Jane Krakowski's character, Jacqueline. And Jane Krakowski actually makes an appearance on your show.
She sure does.
As well. And in this clip, you've gone to a party with Jacqueline as a sort of wing woman, and you've got on a white wig because you're pretending to be Sia, the pop star with no face.
Right.
And it doesn't work out how you imagined.
I can't hear anything, so I'm gonna assume that was my cue. Also, iTunes suspended my account, so I'm gonna have to wing it. Chandelier! Fancy roof lamp! Chandelier! Chandelier! Chandelier!
Wow.
It must be fun to go on Kimmy Schmidt, which is, I don't want to call it an unhinged show. It's pretty hinged, but it's very silly and very high energy to begin with.
Uh-huh.
And your mandate is kind of to jump in there and really get things going.
Yeah, I love it. I love my look. I look like a little fox because I have a little face and this huge country club hairstyle, and I get to wear designer clothing, and it's just and I'm just so weak, next to Jane, just desperate for her attention. So you already have an internal game to play, which is always makes it fun, and everyone's just really nice and funny on that show. It's all you walk in, you get laughs, and you leave. It's perfect.
Do you have any bunnies in your life right now?
I have Tina. She's 7 pounds. She has a deformed paw. She's aggressive, and she's just as charming as can be. And I've had her for 3 years.
What kind of aggressive is she?
She growls and grunts a little bit. She's knocked me down in the hallway.
How did you end up with bunnies particularly? Because you've been a bunny advocate for quite a long time.
I have. I was in the 90s, and I saw a little bunny in a window, and I just impulsively bought it. And I named her Tattletale, and she was a little dwarf bunny and Silver Martin. And I was doing everything wrong. And then I met this woman who came to my house to do an interview, and she was in charge of the House Rabbit Society, Mary Cotter. And she said, "Oh no, you're doing everything wrong." And she trained me, and now I have a badge, and I can go into people's homes, and I can educate them on rabbit care. And any excuse to go into anyone's home. I mean, I'm right there. I love to go into other people's apartments. And I've rescued a couple bunnies, and I go to the conference every fall in New Rochelle, and I don't know. I'm just really into it. And then I had that bunny for 7 years, and then I got another bunny, and I had her for 12 years, and now I've had Tina for 3.
I'm imagining you right now in what amounts to a kind of police procedural, like a Law and Order spinoff where it's you banging on apartment doors in New York,
That's
and
funny.
someone's eye going up to the peephole and you flashing your bunny badge.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I've seen some crazy stuff. Yeah.
Wait, what kind of crazy bunny stuff have you seen?
Well, I saw one. I mean, I don't know what I can say on NPR. Just people's apartments. Forget the rabbits. I'm more interested in the houses and the people.
Did you have that sense of identity that some people develop in high school? Like, oh yeah, I'm a theater kid, or I'm a band person, or I'm a football player, or I'm a geek in the AV club.
I loved the AV Club. They were always there hooking up stuff. It was the best when they would come into the classroom to hook up the screen or something. Like, oh, weirdos. I don't know what I was. I don't know. I was in Girl Scouts up to my senior year of high school. Maybe that makes me a geek. I don't know.
Did you learn to do any cool Girl Scout stuff? Like, do they teach you knots or anything?
I don't remember knots, but a lot of the crafts I do on the show I learned in Girl Scouts. And we would go camping. And, you had to earn a badge, and I liked earning badges, and I was always sold the most cookies, always. I don't know. There's something I just liked about Girl Scouts, getting together with a bunch of girls and doing crafts and, singing songs. And I loved uniforms. I still love uniforms. And I still have my sashes and everything. And when I moved to New York, I went to the Girl Scout Council on 23rd, and I introduced myself, and I said, there are 2 badges I didn't get, and is it too late for me to earn them? And they said no, and they mailed them to me in the mail.
What were the 2 that you hadn't gotten?
Sign of the Star and Sign of the Arrow. I think that's what it was.
What were they for?
Yeah, I don't remember by heart, but one might say, you have to get them up in front of an audience and talk about something you love a lot. You know what I mean? Like little things, like easy stuff. I'm like, look I'm 35. I've done this. I've done that. I did that. You know what I mean? I was just like, maybe I didn't do it back in the 70s, but I did it. I mean, look, so I proved it to them, and I got the badges.
Well, Amy Sedaris, I'm hereby issuing you the Bullseye badge.
Oh, wow!
In honor of being my favorite. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's so nice. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I really enjoyed talking to you. It's nice catching up after all these years.
Amy Sedaris. Her new show, At Home with Amy Sedaris, is on True TV every Tuesday evening at 10:30, 9:30 Central. Also, definitely go on YouTube and watch that scene where Amy is Mimi Kanasis on Kimmy Schmidt, and then she kicks off the shoes on her way onto the rug. It is one of the greatest things ever.